They warned him never to adopt that dog. Bruno had scars, a history of violence, and no one believed he could change. But Liam saw something others missed, a soul that had survived. What followed was a journey neither man nor dog expected. From fear to trust, from isolation to a single moment that would capture the city's heart. Stay with us. This is not just a story about a dangerous dog. It's about second chances. If this resonates with you, like the video, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. The automatic doors of the West Side Animal Shelter slid open with a pneumatic hiss, spilling a stale mix of bleach and wet fur into the chilly February afternoon. Liam Hayes hesitated for a beat at the threshold, pulling the brim of his wool beanie lower over his eyes. The sun outside had been blinding, but in here, the fluorescent lights seemed just as unforgiving. It had been nearly 3 months since he'd willingly walked into a public space that wasn't the corner store or the pharmacy. 3 months since he'd lost his job. 3 months of endless gray mornings spent lying in bed, blinds drawn, breath shallow, wondering when the weight in his chest might lift or whether it ever would. Today wasn't supposed to be different. This wasn't about hope or healing. The note in his pocket, a crumpled reminder from his therapist, had simply read, "Try to be near life today." That's what brought him here. Not the dogs. Not the adoption posters taped to the smudged glass. Not even the email he glimpsed late last night about the shelter's overcrowding. Just a mechanical step out of his cocoon of isolation, like sleepwalking through the motions of someone who used to be alive. "Can I help you?" The voice startled him. A young woman in a staff hoodie stood behind the reception desk, eyes kind but wary, as though too used to visitors with fractured intentions. Liam cleared his throat, the sound strange in his ears. I just wanted to look around." She nodded, sliding a clipboard toward him. "Sign in, please. Some of the dogs can be reactive." Her gaze flicked to the entrance hallway lined with kennels. "If you want to skip the high-energy sections, stay to the left." Liam barely heard her. The scent of disinfectant mingled with damp concrete filled his nostrils as he wandered past the first row of cages. Puppies tumbled over each other, their high-pitched yips bouncing off the walls. An elderly beagle snoozed beneath a fleece blanket. A wiry terrier danced on hind legs, eyes pleading for attention. None of it registered. Liam moved through the space like a ghost, footsteps muffled on the rubber mats. In truth, part of him wanted to turn back. Already the familiar ache was crawling up his spine, that gnawing voice whispering, "You don't belong here. You don't belong anywhere." He was just about to retrace his steps when a flicker of movement at the far end of the hallway caught his eye. The last kennel on the left was darker than the rest, half shrouded by a faded tarp. No signs of welcome hung on the door, no cheery bio, no adopt me balloons. Just a stark white tag with a single name in block letters, Bruno. Liam's gaze drifted lower. Inside, a large pit shepherd mix lay pressed against the back wall. Deep scars mapped across its brindle coat, jagged lines cutting through the once sleek muscle. Its ears twitched faintly, but otherwise it remained motionless, watching Liam with unreadable amber eyes. Not curious, not hopeful, simply aware. Liam stopped breathing for a moment. There was something in that gaze, an echo of a place he knew too well. The shelter seemed to fade around him. For an instant, he was back in the cramped basement of his childhood home, the air thick with mildew and the sharp metallic tang of fear. His father's fists had left marks invisible to the world, but carved deep inside Liam's bones. Survival had meant silence, vigilance, waiting for the next storm without flinching. And here it was, in this dog's eyes, that same terrible patience. "Stay away from that one." A voice pulled Liam back. The young staffer from reception stood behind him now, clipboard in hand. "Bruno's not a good candidate. We're reviewing his status. He's been returned twice. Bite history. Severe anxiety. He's not available for public interaction." Liam should have nodded, should have walked away, but something inside him refused. His feet remained planted. His voice, though soft, surprised even him. "Can I just look?" The staffer hesitated, then sighed. "From here, sure, but don't approach the cage." Liam barely heard her. Slowly, He crouched a few feet from the gate, careful not to move too fast. Bruno's eyes tracked him, wary but unblinking. "I get it," Liam whispered, voice rough. "I know what it's like to be written off." For a beat, nothing changed. Then, so subtly Liam almost missed it, one of Bruno's ears twitched forward. The barest flicker of response. It was enough. In that single motion, something cracked open inside Liam's chest, a space he hadn't realized had gone numb. He swallowed hard, blinking away sudden heat behind his eyes. "Thank you," he said quietly, rising. The staffer shook her head. "I'm serious. He's on the list for behavioral evaluation next week." "We've debated," she hesitated. "We've debated giving up." Liam turned toward her, voice steadier now. "And he's still here." That night, long after the fluorescent lights of the shelter had dimmed, Liam lay awake in his narrow bed, Bruno's haunted gaze replaying in his mind. For the first time in weeks, the weight of his own despair felt less suffocating, not gone, but thinner, stretched by the sudden, inexplicable pull toward a battered creature as lost as he was. He didn't know yet what it meant, only that he would be back tomorrow, and this time not just to look. The next morning, Liam returned to the West Side Animal Shelter with a clarity he hadn't felt in months. The ride over had been a blur of half-formed thoughts and the steady hum of the bus engine beneath his seat, but one image had cut through it all. Bruno's amber eyes locked onto his, neither pleading nor hostile, just waiting. He hadn't told anyone he was coming back, not his therapist, not the online support group he barely skimmed anymore. It wasn't logic pulling him here. It was something deeper, quieter, that wouldn't be dismissed. When he stepped through the automatic doors, the same young staffer from the previous day greeted him with a surprised blink. "You're back," she said, voice neutral but curious. "Yeah," Liam replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "I want to talk about adopting Bruno." The words hung in the air, weighty and impossible to unsay. The staffer's polite expression faltered for a split second. "You want to adopt Bruno," she repeated, as if testing whether she'd heard correctly. Liam nodded once. The staffer hesitated. "I'll get the supervisor," she said quietly, disappearing down a side hall. Liam waited, heart thudding against his ribs, unsure whether it was adrenaline or fear or both. Moments later, a tall man with graying temples and a weary but kind gaze emerged from the office. His name tag read Mike Granger, shelter director. "You're the one who asked about Bruno?" he said, voice low and measured. "That's right." Mike studied him for a beat. "Walk with me." They moved toward a small conference room off the main lobby. Mike gestured for Liam to sit, then placed a thick manila folder on the table between them. It was worn at the edges, the clasp bent from frequent handling. He flipped it open with a sigh. "Before we go any further," Mike began, "you need to know what you're asking." He tapped a photo clipped to the first page. Bruno as he appeared now, scarred, wary, formidable. This dog is not your typical rescue case. Bruno has a bite history, not just nips or warning snaps. A full bite incident that resulted in a fractured radius and ulna. His previous owner required reconstructive surgery. The words hit like a punch to the gut, but Liam forced himself to stay rooted. "What happened?" he asked, voice steady. Mike's expression tightened. The owner had adopted Bruno from here 6 months ago. Within the first week, there were reports of escalating anxiety, constant pacing, vocalizing, destructive chewing. The man used aversive methods, prong collars, alpha rolls, physical corrections. He exhaled slowly. One night, Bruno snapped. The man reached for his collar after cornering him in a crate. Bruno bit down, shattered the bones in his forearm. Liam swallowed hard. Was he provoked? Mike's gaze softened slightly. That's the thing. Every behaviorist who's assessed Bruno says the same. This isn't a dog with true aggression. It's a dog with trauma responses. He's terrified of confinement and harsh handling. Under stress, he defaults to survival. Liam looked down at the file, pulse racing. The official warning stamped in red ink caught his eye. Not recommended for placement in residential areas. He's been returned twice. Liam asked quietly. Mike nodded grimly. Both times within a month. The second adopter thought she could love the fear out of him with no experience handling complex cases. Bruno panicked during a thunderstorm, destroyed a door, trying to escape. She brought him back the next morning. Mike flipped to a later section of the file, revealing a grainy photo Liam wished he hadn't seen. Bruises along Bruno's ribs, defensive wounds on his muzzle. "Third home," Mike said, voice tightening. This one didn't go well. The man wanted a guard dog. When Bruno wouldn't comply, he used a steel baton. Liam's stomach churned. Mike's fingers rested lightly on the edge of the photo. Bruno was confiscated before the situation escalated further, but not before. He let the sentence trail off. Liam stared at the image, breath shallow. "Why is he still here?" he asked finally. Mike leaned back, arms crossed. "Because every time we schedule him for behavioral euthanasia, someone on staff protests. Says there's more to him than this file. And I'll tell you something." He glanced toward the window, voice dropping. "I've been in this business 22 years. I've seen dogs fight back. I've seen them snap, bite, rage. But when that man hit Bruno, he didn't lash out. He didn't retaliate. He just shut down. Took it. I've never seen that in a dog his size. It wasn't submission. It was resignation." The words lodged deep in Liam's chest. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Liam found his voice again, quiet but certain. "I still want to try." Mike's brow furrowed. "You understand what you're taking on?" "No one does," Liam said honestly. "But I'm willing to learn." Mike studied him for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he closed the folder and exhaled. "All right," he said softly. "We'll need to set up a behavior consult first. No promises, no pressure. Just an introduction session. You'll need to sign waivers, and I want you to meet with our trainer beforehand." Liam nodded. "When can we start?" Mike glanced at the clock. "Give me an hour. In the meantime, think it through." But Liam already had. The moment he'd locked eyes with Bruno yesterday, something inside him had shifted, a tether snapping taut between two wounded souls. This wasn't about rescuing a dog anymore. It was about seeing someone through the darkness when no one else had stayed. Mike stood, offering a firm handshake. "You've got grit," he said simply. "Bruno's going to need it." As Liam watched him disappear down the hall, a flicker of nerves coursed through him. But beneath it, something else stirred. Resolve. Hope. Maybe for both of them. The sun had barely begun to dip behind the apartment complex when Liam pulled his aging Subaru into the narrow lot behind his building. The shelter visit had stretched longer than expected. Between the waiver forms, the consultation with their trainer, and the final heart-pounding moment when Mike handed over Bruno's leash and softly wished him good luck. Now, standing at the edge of this next unknown, Liam felt the first prickle of doubt crawl up his spine. Bruno sat in the back seat, tense and unmoving, his head low between his shoulders. The trainer had advised keeping the transition as low stimulus as possible. No baby talk, no reaching in too fast. Just give him space. Liam inhaled slowly, exhaled through his nose, then opened the car door and crouched beside it. "Ready when you are," he murmured. Bruno didn't move for a full minute. Then, with cautious, deliberate movements, the big dog slunk from the seat, paws making soft thuds on the cracked pavement. Liam stayed low, fingers loosely curled around the leash, offering no pull, no command. He simply walked ahead, letting Bruno choose the pace. Up 2 flights of stairs they went, slow, awkward, Liam pausing often as Bruno froze at each new sound. The neighbor's door shutting down the hall, a distant burst of laughter through the thin walls, the groan of the elevator cables nearby. Inside the apartment, Liam had prepared as much as he could. His living room was stripped of anything fragile or obstructive. The crate the shelter insisted he take sat open and empty in the corner. A bowl of fresh water and a smaller bowl of food rested near the kitchen entrance. The hallway to the bedroom and bath was left unobstructed. Minimal quiet. Safe, or so he hoped. Bruno padded through the threshold with deliberate caution, nose twitching furiously. His movements were tight, muscles wound beneath the scars and brindle fur. Liam stood just inside, watching, resisting every instinct to speak. The trainer's words echoed. Let him acclimate. Don't force interaction. Let him come to you. For a long while, Bruno circled the perimeter of the room, head low, tail stiff. He sniffed at the water, but did not drink. The food remained untouched. After several slow laps, he slipped down the hall and vanished from view. Liam followed at a distance, heart hammering. When he reached the hallway corner, he found Bruno hunched in the farthest possible space, the small tiled half-bath off the main bedroom. The dog had wedged himself between the toilet and the wall, his body trembling faintly. His eyes flicked toward Liam, wide and wary, then back to the corner. Liam exhaled a slow, aching breath. "Okay," he whispered. "You can have that space." He retreated without another word. The hours that followed blurred into a strange, disjointed vigil. Liam paced between the kitchen and living room, nerves jangling with every small sound. He checked on Bruno quietly at intervals, always finding the same scene. The big dog pressed in that narrow corner, unmoving, eyes glassy with stress. 10 hours passed this way. No food, no water, no sleep. Liam's own exhaustion dragged at his limbs, but he couldn't bring himself to fully rest. Around midnight, driven by a restless pulse he couldn't shake, he moved down the hall again, phone flashlight held low to avoid startling the dog. The bathroom door remained ajar, and as he approached, he noticed a subtle change. Bruno was sitting upright now, head turned toward the open doorway, chest rising and falling in fast, shallow breaths. Liam hesitated, then stepped softly inside and reached for the wall switch. A soft click. The overhead light flared to life. What happened next unfolded in a blink that felt endless. Bruno flinched violently, scrambling to his feet. His hackles rose in an instant, a deep, guttural growl tearing from his throat. Liam froze in place, hands loose at his sides, every muscle screaming to hold still. Then he saw it. Bruno wasn't looking at him. The dog's wide, panicked gaze was locked on the large rectangular mirror that spanned the length of the opposite wall. Bruno's reflection stared back at him, lips curled, eyes wild, posture defensive. Liam's heart clenched. Of course, the mirror. The shelter had mentioned that Bruno had likely lived outdoors or in garages most of his life. It was unlikely he'd encountered a full-length reflective surface before. In his traumatized mind, another dog had suddenly appeared in his hiding place, aggressive and unyielding. The growl deepened. Bruno's body shifted into a rigid crouch, legs trembling beneath him. Liam acted without thinking. He dropped to one knee, lowering his gaze to the tile. In the calmest voice he could manage, he began to speak, not with commands, not with pleading, just soft, even words. "It's okay," he said slowly, carefully. "That's not someone else. It's just you. You're okay. You're safe." The growl flickered, hesitated. Bruno's head jerked sideways for a breathless instant, as if trying to process the unfamiliar tones. Then his gaze snapped back to the mirror. Liam continued, keeping his tone low and steady. "You don't have to fight. You don't have to run. Just look at me now." Minutes stretched, taut and brittle. Liam barely breathed. Finally, Bruno shifted slightly, one trembling paw sliding forward an inch. Another. He glanced once toward Liam, just a flick of amber eyes, and in that fragile pause, Liam reached up and flicked off the bathroom light. Darkness swallowed the mirror's reflection. The growl ebbed into a low whine. In the dim hallway light, Liam remained still, pulse roaring in his ears. After several long moments, Bruno lowered himself to the floor in a tight, coiled ball, sides heaving. Liam exhaled shakily. "It's okay," he whispered again. "You did good." He rose slowly, retreating down the hall once more, leaving the bathroom door half closed behind him. Back in the living room, Liam sank onto the worn couch, head in his hands. His body ached with fatigue, nerves still vibrating from the encounter. But beneath the exhaustion, a fierce clarity burned. Bruno wasn't dangerous. He was terrified. He was fighting ghosts no one else could see, just like Liam had once upon a time. Somewhere in the depths of the dark apartment, a soft whimper echoed faintly. Liam straightened, listening. Not a cry of pain, not a growl, just a small, fractured sound of someone lost in the dark. The days that followed blurred into an uneasy rhythm, marked more by silence than progress. Bruno remained wary, retreating to the bathroom or the shadowed corners of the apartment whenever Liam entered a room. The untouched food bowl was replaced twice daily, and though the water level dipped occasionally, Liam never saw Bruno drink. Nights were the hardest. Liam slept fitfully on the couch, ears straining for any sound from the hall. Each soft whimper or shuffle pulled him from shallow dreams, heart racing, but he forced himself not to intervene unless absolutely necessary. The trainer's advice had been clear. Trust was built on patience, not presence. But patience was a brutal currency, and each hour of waiting gnawed at Liam's resolve. On the fourth morning, unable to shake the restless ache inside him, he retrieved the thick manila file Mike had given him before they left the shelter. Until now, he hadn't dared open it fully, afraid of what the pages might reveal. But the time for fear had passed. Settling onto the worn armchair, Liam spread the file across his lap. The familiar intake forms and medical records came first: standard vaccination history, weight checks, treatment notes. Then, buried halfway through the stack, a faded intake report caught his eye. The handwriting was cramped but legible. Initial condition: underweight, severe muscle atrophy, extensive callousing on joints. Behavioral notes: extreme avoidance of eye contact, severe noise sensitivity, compulsive circling behavior. Liam's throat tightened. He traced the next few lines with trembling fingers. Confirmed history via animal control. 18 months, caged outdoors. Minimal human interaction. Cage dimensions approximate 4 by 6 feet, no shelter from weather extremes. No documented positive reinforcement. High likelihood of long-term sensory deprivation. 18 months. A year and a half spent staring through rusted wire, battered by rain and heat and isolation. Liam exhaled shakily, the words twisting deep into his chest. No wonder Bruno viewed the apartment as hostile terrain. No wonder mirrors and sudden movements triggered panic. His entire world had been a cage. Setting the file aside, Liam rubbed at his temples. Understanding Bruno's past didn't make the road ahead less daunting, but it gave context to every tremble, every flinch, every long, hollow stare. And it deepened Liam's conviction that giving up wasn't an option. He would not be another human who walked away. The weather shifted that afternoon, thick clouds rolling in as wind lashed against the windows. By evening, the apartment lay beneath a heavy hush, broken only by the first tentative drops of rain tapping the glass. Liam had learned to leave Bruno's chosen spaces undisturbed, but tonight he noticed something new. The bathroom door, usually pushed nearly closed, hung wider than before. Through the gap, he glimpsed Bruno lying on the cool tile, head resting between his paws, ears flicking at each rumble of thunder in the distance. Liam didn't enter, but he sat in the hallway nearby, back against the wall, reading softly from a battered novel to fill the silence with something human but unthreatening. Hours passed this way, the storm creeping closer. Around midnight, the sky split with a violent crack, the apartment shuddering beneath the sound. In an instant, a raw, broken yelp echoed from the bathroom. Liam shot upright, pulse hammering. A second yelp followed, sharper, ragged. Ignoring caution, he crept to the doorway and froze. Bruno was curled into a tight ball, body convulsing with tremors. His jaws worked feverishly at one hind leg, teeth sinking into the flesh, as if trying to tear the panic from his own bones. Blood speckled the tile beneath him. Liam's breath caught. Every instinct screamed to rush in, to pull the dog away, but the trainer's warning echoed louder. Do not grab a panicked dog. Do not use force. You make it worse. Heart racing, Liam dropped his knees in the hallway. He stretched out on the floor, body low, voice barely above a whisper. Bruno, he murmured. Bruno, I'm here. The dog didn't respond. The frantic gnawing continued, harsh breaths tearing from his throat. Liam swallowed hard. The storm raged above, shaking the windows with each rolling peal. And then, memory rose unbidden, a ghost from years ago. Liam, no older than 9, huddled beneath his childhood bed as thunder cracked through the night. His father's rage had already driven him there, fists still echoing in the air. His mother, unable to coax him out, had lain beside the bed instead, reading softly from a worn copy of The Wind in the Willows, her voice a gentle tether in the storm. Without thinking, Liam began to speak. His voice trembled at first, then steadied. Rat said, "There is nothing, absolutely nothing, half so much worth doing as simply messing about in boats." The familiar words tumbled from his lips, weaving through the charged air. Bruno's ear twitched, a faint flicker amid the chaos. "And we're out of him, it doesn't matter. Nothing seems really to matter. That's the charm of it." The gnawing slowed. Liam pressed on, voice steady despite the thundering pulse in his veins. "Whether you get away, or whether you don't, whether you arrive at your destination, or whether you reach somewhere else, or whether you never get anywhere at all," Bruno's breath hitched. The trembling didn't cease, but the frantic, tearing movements stilled. His jaws loosened, bloodied paw twitching weakly against the tile. Liam dared a glance through the door. The big dog lay panting, eyes wide but locked now on Liam's prone form. No longer lost, no longer alone. Liam's throat tightened painfully. "Good boy," he whispered, tears threatening. "You're safe. You're here. No one will hurt you." The storm surged and faded in waves above them. But Liam stayed where he was, reading softly into the dark, until at last Bruno's shuddering breaths eased into weary, uneven sleep. Sleep came in fits and starts for Liam after the storm. He hadn't moved from the hallway floor until dawn's pale light bled through the window blinds, and even then, it was only to coax Bruno gently from the bathroom and guide him to a fresh bowl of water. The sight of the blood-matted fur on Bruno's leg had twisted in Liam's gut, but he had followed the trainer's advice again. No sudden movements, no attempts to clean the wound without consent. He simply sat nearby as Bruno drank, eyes flicking toward him with cautious gratitude. It wasn't until mid-morning that Liam finally allowed himself to collapse in a bed, exhaustion pulling him under like a tide. When he woke again, groggy and sore, the apartment was steeped in quiet. The digital clock read 9:42 a.m. Blinking away the fog of sleep, Liam shifted onto his side and froze. There on the floor beside the bed, Bruno lay curled in a tight ball, nose tucked beneath one paw, ribcage rising and falling in slow, even breaths. Liam's breath caught. The dog had ventured out of the bathroom. More than that, he had chosen to sleep here, within reach of Liam's presence, yet not too close. The distance was deliberate, a careful 50 centimeters, measured as though Bruno had calculated the exact space where he could be near but not intrusive, near but safe. Liam swallowed against the lump in his throat. Progress. Not dramatic, not cinematic, but real. Tangible. A moment to honor. He lay still, unwilling to shatter the fragile trust that had brought Bruno here. Minutes passed, then an hour. Eventually, hunger drew Liam from the bed, and as he rose slowly, Bruno's ears twitched, but the dog did not bolt. His amber eyes tracked Liam's movements with wary calm. In the kitchen, Liam moved quietly, preparing oatmeal and leaving a portion of chicken near Bruno's bowl. This time, to his quiet joy, the food disappeared over the course of the day, consumed in careful increments when Bruno thought no one was watching. The shift marked a new phase in their fragile coexistence. The bathroom was no longer Bruno's sole refuge. He explored the apartment in measured forays, padding along the hallway, lingering at the living room threshold. He did not yet seek touch or closeness, but the heavy veil of fear seemed to lighten, thread by thread. Liam adapted his routines to reinforce this tentative trust. He spoke gently when moving between rooms. He avoided towering over Bruno or blocking pathways. He sat on the floor often, reading aloud or scrolling quietly on his phone, providing presence without pressure. Days turned into a week, then two. With each sunrise, subtle signs of connection emerged. A flick of the tail. A glance held a beat longer. A soft exhale when Liam passed by. Yet Liam knew better than to mistake tolerance for full trust. The scars Bruno carried, visible and unseen, ran deep. There would be setbacks. And so, one crisp morning, he decided to test a boundary, not to provoke, but to understand. After breakfast, Liam rose and moved to the bedroom door. Bruno, lying in the hallway, watched with mild curiosity. Liam hesitated only a moment before closing the door softly, leaving Bruno outside for the first time since the adoption. Then he sat on the edge of the bed, heart pounding. This was a deliberate experiment. He needed to know, would Bruno panic? Would he scratch or bark, believing the door another prison, another punishment? Minutes dragged into 30. No sound came from beyond the door. Liam forced himself to remain seated, resisting the urge to peek. At the 1 hour mark, curiosity overcame caution. He rose quietly and opened the door a sliver, just enough to glimpse the hallway. Bruno sat precisely where Liam had last seen him, upright but weary, eyes trained on the door with haunting intensity. His body trembled faintly, the strain of waiting etched into every muscle, yet he made no move to scratch or whimper. No rebellion, no demand, just waiting. Liam's chest ached. He opened the door fully and knelt, voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry," he said, throat tight. "You don't have to wait like that." Bruno didn't surge forward or collapse in relief. He blinked slowly, as if processing the absence of punishment, then lay down where he was, head resting heavily on his paws. Liam sat beside him, careful to maintain space. For 3 long hours, Bruno had waited, not because he feared missing Liam's presence, but because past experience had taught him that insistence led to pain. The lesson written into his bones was brutal and clear. Begging invited punishment. Silence was survival. Tears stung Liam's eyes. He reached out slowly, stopping short of contact, and let his voice fill the space. "You don't have to ask. You're welcome here." They remained like that for some time, man and dog, tethered by invisible wounds that words alone could not mend. But in that stillness, Liam made a silent vow. He would teach Bruno a new lesson, one of patience returned with safety, of presence met with kindness. The road ahead would be long, but for the first time, a fragile thread of trust connected them. And threads, Liam knew, could be woven into lifelines. The first signs of spring crept slowly into the city, pale sun breaking through weeks of clouded gray. The shift in weather mirrored the slow thaw inside Liam's apartment. Bruno's presence had become a steady pulse in Liam's days now. No longer a ghost in the corners, but a companion who moved with deliberate caution through familiar spaces. The bathroom door remained open more often than closed. The food bowl emptied more quickly. Sometimes Liam caught Bruno watching him from the hallway, gaze thoughtful, no longer blank. Small victories, Liam reminded himself. No rus, no expectations. But part of him knew they couldn't remain cloistered forever. The outside world awaited, vast and unpredictable, and Bruno would have to face it eventually. Liam mulled over the decision for days, consulting the trainer again and again. Together they crafted a plan, short exposure walks, controlled environment, multiple layers of safety. When a morning finally arrived, Liam woke with his chest tight and restless energy coiling beneath his skin. He brewed coffee with shaking hands, packed treats, and wipes into his old canvas satchel. The leash he chose was double reinforced, with a secondary tether clipped to a waist belt. A basket muzzle, soft-lined, secure, rested on the kitchen counter, ready if needed. The trainer had insisted, not a sign of aggression, but a layer of trust for both Bruno and the people they might encounter. After breakfast, Liam crouched near the living room, voice steady. "We're going to try something new today, bud," he said. Bruno watched him silently, ears flicking forward. It took patience and gentle coaxing to fit the muzzle, but when it was finally secured, Bruno tolerated it without struggle, his eyes somber but calm. Liam clipped the leash and rose slowly. "We'll go at your pace," he whispered. The first few steps beyond the apartment door were tentative. Bruno's entire frame remained taut, head low, every sound drawing a flicker of muscle beneath his fur. The stairs posed a new challenge. Liam moved slowly, letting Bruno pause at each landing. Outside, the sidewalk shimmered with weak sunlight, damp from an early rain. The street pulsed with weekend life, Strollers, cyclists, couples walking hand in hand. Liam's grip tightened on the leash instinctively, heart pounding. But Bruno remained steady. He moved beside Liam, scanning the shifting crowd, but showing no signs of panic or aggression. They made their way toward the small park 3 blocks away, a space Liam had chosen carefully, open sightlines, wide paths, room to retreat. Bruno's breathing stayed fast, but even each step a cautious negotiation with the unfamiliar world. Liam spoke to him in low tones, praising every forward motion. Halfway through their route, the first true test came. A man emerged from a side street, swinging a worn wooden baseball bat over his shoulder, oblivious to the dog approaching. Bruno stopped dead, hackles rising, body frozen. His tail tucked sharply beneath him as he backed away, shivering. The leash trembled in Liam's hands. "It's okay," he murmured urgently, positioning himself between Bruno and the man. The stranger passed without noticing, but the damage was done. Bruno's eyes remained locked on the bat, long after it vanished from sight. Liam knelt at Bruno's side, voice soft. "You're safe. No one will hurt you." The shudders slowed eventually, though Bruno's body remained hunched, ears flat. Liam's heart ached. The reaction was too specific, too visceral to be random. Somewhere in Bruno's past, a bat, or something like it, had meant pain. Liam filed the knowledge away silently. Trauma had long shadows. They resumed the walk at Bruno's signal, just a slow step forward, nose twitching. Each cautious stride was a victory. The park greeted them with light and space. Families scattered across the lawn. Liam chose a quiet path, steering clear of crowds. Bruno sniffed at patches of grass, tension ebbing by degrees. They were nearing a shaded bench when the second test arrived, unbidden. A small child, blonde curls bouncing beneath a floppy sun hat, darted from her mother's side and ran straight toward them, laughing. "Puppy," she squealed. Liam's blood ran cold. "Wait," he called, but the girl was too quick, too fearless. Bruno stiffened as she approached, muzzle tilting upward. Liam, prepared for the worst, barked a sharp stay, but the leash remained slack. The little girl reached out and patted Bruno's head without hesitation. The world seemed to freeze. And then Bruno's tongue flicked out once, gently, licking the small fingers. "No grol, no retreat." Just a soft, patient gesture. Liam exhaled, knees buckling with relief. The child giggled and ran back to her mother, oblivious to the miracle she had witnessed. Liam crouched beside Bruno, voice thick. "Good boy," he whispered. "You're amazing." For a long moment, Bruno stood still, gazed distant. But when Liam offered his hand, palm upturned, Bruno nudged it softly with his nose. The walk home felt lighter somehow. Bruno moved with less hesitation, tail held low but no longer pressed tight. Liam's chest swelled with quiet pride. Bruno hadn't lost his capacity for gentleness. Somewhere beneath the scars and shadows, love still lived. The early evening air was crisp, the last traces of sunset fading into indigo streaks across the sky. Liam adjusted the leash clipped to his belt, glancing down at Bruno, who padded steadily at his side. After their recent successful outings, the park had become a familiar ground, a place where Bruno could experience the world beyond the apartment without being overwhelmed. Liam chose the quieter hours on purpose, fewer people, fewer triggers. Tonight felt promising. Bruno had eaten well, tolerated the muzzle calmly, and had even allowed Liam to brush out some of his winter coat earlier that afternoon. They reached the park entrance just as the street lamps flickered on. The wide path snaked through tall oaks, benches dotting its edges, the occasional jogger or dog walker passing by. Liam kept his pace slow, watching Bruno's body language carefully. The dog moved with alert ease, tail low but relaxed, ears swiveling to catch distant sounds. Each small signal reinforced what Liam already knew. Bruno was trying. Every step outside was an act of courage. They reached a clearing where the path opened onto a grassy expanse. A few dogs romped freely near the far end, their owners chatting along the fence. Liam scanned the area. "No obvious daños," He chose a quieter bench near the edge of the clearing, unclipped the leash from his belt, but kept it firm in hand. Bruno sat beside him, leaning slightly into Liam's leg. "You're doing great," Liam murmured, scratching behind one ear. Bruno exhaled softly, eyes half-lidded. The moment felt fragile and perfect, a quiet reward after weeks of hard-won trust. But peace in the park, like all things, proved fleeting. It happened fast, too fast. One of the off-leash dogs, a large black Labrador mix, broke from its owner's side with sudden force. It sprinted across the field, hackles raised, teeth bared. Liam barely had time to register the blur of motion before the dog collided with Bruno, jaws clamping onto the side of his neck. The impact knocked Bruno sideways, a guttural yelp tearing from his throat. Panic surged through Liam. "Bruno!" he shouted, lunging forward. But instincts had already taken over. Bruno twisted with a speed Liam had never seen, muscles rippling beneath his scarred coat. In a single fluid motion, he planted his hind legs, shifted his weight, and rolled the attacking dog beneath him. The Labrador thrashed wildly, snapping and snarling, but Bruno held firm, front paws pinning the other dog's shoulders, head raised high, jaws closed tight, but not engaged. "No bite, no retaliation. Just control." Liam's breath caught. Around them, voices erupted. The Labrador's owner sprinted toward the scene, face twisted in fury. "Get your damn dog off," she screamed. "He's going to kill him." "He's not," Liam shouted back, voice raw. He dropped to his knees beside Bruno, hands steady. "Bruno off. Now." The command came low, calm, practiced. Bruno's ears flicked toward Liam. For a heartbeat, he hesitated, then released his hold and backed away in a crouch, trembling but alert. The Labrador scrambled upright, whining, no visible injuries beyond minor scrapes. Liam clipped Bruno's leash instantly, positioning himself between the two dogs. The woman stormed forward, eyes blazing. "You're lucky he's muzzled," she spat. "That dog's a menace. I'm calling animal control. You'll be lucky if they don't seize him." Fear clawed at Liam's chest. "Your dog charged first," he said, trying to keep his voice even. Bruno didn't bite. He defended himself. "I saw what I saw," she snapped. "You think they're going to take your word over mine when your mutt looks like that?" She gestured toward Bruno's scarred frame, her words slicing through the fragile calm. Around them, a small crowd had gathered, phones out, murmurs rippling. Liam felt cold sweat bead along his spine. He knelt beside Bruno again, checking the neck wound. The puncture was shallow, bleeding lightly. No serious damage. Bruno's body shook beneath his touch, not with aggression, but with residual fear. The Labrador's owner paced furiously, already dialing her phone. "You'll hear from my lawyer," she hissed, "and from animal control. Dangerous dogs like that shouldn't be allowed in public." Liam's breath caught painfully. The threat was more than empty words. If animal control ruled Bruno a danger, they could mandate behavioral testing, or worse. The thought of Bruno back in a cage, subjected to more scrutiny, tore through Liam's gut. He rose slowly, voice hoarse. "We're leaving," he said firmly. "Come on, Bruno." They retreated from the clearing under a storm of glares and whispered accusations. Liam kept his grip on the leash taut, heart pounding with every step. Bruno followed, close to Liam's side, head low, eyes flicking nervously. The walk home blurred into a haze of dread and adrenaline. Each sound seemed louder, each shadow sharper. Liam's mind raced, replaying the scene in agonizing detail. He knew the truth. Bruno hadn't attacked, hadn't bitten. He had shown remarkable restraint. But would the authorities see it that way? Would they care about the nuance? Back in the apartment, Liam dropped to his knees in the hallway, unhooking the leash with trembling fingers. "It's okay," he whispered, voice breaking. "You did nothing wrong. You hear me? Nothing." Bruno pressed against him, shuddering, eyes wide. Liam gathered him close, burying his face in the thick fur. "I won't let them take you," he vowed softly, fierce and certain. "I won't." The hours after the park incident were a blur of tension and dread. Liam barely slept that night, Every time he drifted in an uneasy rest, jerking awake with the image of the Labrador's owner's furious face and her parting words ringing in his ears. Bruno lay curled at the foot of the bed, still trembling well into the morning, flinching at sudden noises, eyes wide and uncertain. Liam alternated between comforting the dog and pacing the apartment, thoughts spiraling. He had replayed the scene 100 times in his head. Bruno had done everything right. He had defended himself without biting, without escalating. But would that matter to animal control or to the court of public opinion? His heart clenched at the thought of losing Bruno to bureaucracy and fear. Late the next morning, while Liam nursed a lukewarm cup of coffee, his phone buzzed with an unknown number. He stared at it for a beat before answering, voice rough from lack of sleep. "Hello. Is this Liam Hayes?" A woman's voice asked. "Yes, who is this?" "My name's Marissa Chun. I was at the park last night. I think I might be able to help you." Liam's heart skipped. "I'm listening." "I was recording my nephew's soccer practice at the field across from where everything happened," she explained quickly. "I caught the whole thing on video. Your dog wasn't the aggressor. He didn't bite, didn't attack. I thought you should know. I can send it to you if you want." Relief and disbelief warred in Liam's chest. "Please," he said, breathless. "Please send it. Thank you." Minutes later, an email notification appeared. Liam opened the video with trembling fingers. The footage was shaky but clear enough. It captured the black Labrador breaking from its owner and charging Bruno. It showed the moment of impact, the clamped jaws, Bruno's defensive maneuver, the roll and pin, but no bite, no retaliatory snap. Just controlled, restrained response. Watching it, Liam's throat tightened painfully. "You did so good," he whispered to Bruno, who looked up at him with wary eyes. The video became his shield. Armed with it, Liam immediately forwarded a copy to the trainer, who promised to help advocate if needed, and to Mike at the shelter, who responded with an encouraging, "Good. Keep it safe. We'll back you up if it comes to that." But the biggest surprise came 2 days later. Liam's phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Marissa. "Hey, hope it's okay. I posted the video online. People should see the truth." Liam's stomach flipped. The thought of public scrutiny was terrifying, but before he could protest, another message came through. "It's blowing up in a good way. You should check it out." Cautiously, Liam opened his browser and navigated to the post. The video had been uploaded to a local community group, then shared widely. Comments flooded beneath it. That dog showed incredible restraint. You can see he was scared but controlled. People need to stop judging by appearance. The thread had gained hundreds of likes and shares in just hours. Liam scrolled through in disbelief. Amid the sea of voices, one message stood out, a direct message from an account named Second Chance Tales, a local volunteer group that specialized in rehabilitating and promoting adoptable dogs with difficult histories. The message read, "Hi Liam, we saw the video of Bruno. What an incredible dog. Would you and he be willing to speak at one of our upcoming events? We're doing a talk on adopting and working with challenging dogs. Your story could really inspire people." Liam stared at the screen, emotions churning. The idea of standing in front of an audience felt daunting, but the chance for Bruno to be seen, really seen, not as a threat, but as a survivor, that was too important to ignore. He typed a careful reply. "Thank you for reaching out. I need to think about it, but I'm open to talking." They responded quickly, warmly. "No pressure. Just let us know. We think Bruno could change some minds." That evening, Liam sat on the floor with Bruno, brushing out the dog's coat with slow, deliberate strokes. "They want us to tell your story," he murmured. Bruno leaned into the brush slightly, eyes fluttering closed. Liam smiled faintly. "You've already told it better than I ever could." For the first time in weeks, the knot of fear in Liam's chest loosened. They weren't alone in this fight anymore. People had seen the truth. And maybe, just maybe, Bruno's past would no longer define his future. The day of the speaking event arrived faster than Liam had anticipated. Despite the nerves coiled in his stomach, he couldn't ignore the undercurrent of pride running beneath them. For the first time since bringing Bruno home, they were stepping into a space where their story was not one of defense, but of possibility. The event was held at a modest community center on the east side of the city, its walls adorned with photos of rescued dogs and their new families. A small stage faced a semicircle of chairs, already filling with an eager audience. Volunteers from Second Chance Tales greeted Liam warmly, their admiration for Bruno evident in every glance. Bruno, for his part, handled the unfamiliar space with stoic grace. He remained close to Liam's side, alert but composed, his basket muzzle in place more for Liam's comfort than necessity. The talk itself flowed easier than Liam had feared. Speaking from the heart came naturally when the subject was Bruno's journey. He shared the early struggles, the nightmarish echoes of Bruno's past, the moments of tentative trust that had begun to bridge the chasm between them. When it came time to recount the park incident, Liam showed the video, the room falling into a hush as the footage played. The applause that followed brought a lump to Liam's throat. But what moved him most was watching Bruno in that moment, lying calmly at his feet, unflinching amid the attention. Here was a dog who had been labeled broken, dangerous, irredeemable, and now, eyes met as not with fear, but with respect. Afterward, several attendees approached to thank Liam, some with tears in their eyes. A man with a heavily scarred pit bull whispered, "You gave me hope." Liam squeezed his hand in return. The sun had dipped low by the time Liam and Bruno left the center, the cool evening air wrapping around them. Liam exhaled a long breath as they walked, the tension of the day finally beginning to ebb. "You did amazing," he murmured, scratching Bruno's ear. The dog leaned subtly into the touch. They took a quieter side street toward the transit stop, the sidewalks nearly empty. Liam's mind wandered to the emails waiting in his inbox, the messages of support still trickling in. He was so focused on this that he almost didn't register the commotion up ahead. A sharp cry split the air, followed by the frantic slap of running footsteps. Liam's gaze snapped up just in time to see a young woman stumble and fall to the pavement, her handbag ripped from her grasp. The thief, a wiry man in a gray hoodie, darted past her, sprinting full tilt down the sidewalk. Time seemed to slow. The man was coming straight toward Liam and Bruno, eyes wild, one arm clutching the stolen bag. Instinct surged before thought. Bruno stiffened beside Liam, hackles lifting, muscles coiling like springs. The leash tautened in Liam's grip as he shouted, "Stay!" But the thief was nearly upon them now, the woman's frantic shouts echoing behind. In a flash, Bruno made his move. He surged forward with explosive power, the leash ripping from Liam's hands. But Bruno didn't snap or lunge. He pivoted his weight expertly, launching a brutal, shoulder-driven hurl into the thief's side. The impact sent the man sprawling to the concrete, the handbag skittering free. Bruno stood over him, body rigid, gaze locked. Not a single tooth exposed, not a single growl sounded, just unwavering control. Liam sprinted forward, heart in his throat. "Bruno back," he commanded. At once, Bruno stepped away, posture lowering into a watchful crouch. The thief groaned, clutching his ribs. Within moments, sirens wailed in the distance. A nearby shopkeeper who had witnessed the scene rushed over to retrieve the handbag and assist the young woman, who was sobbing in relief. Police arrived swiftly, 2 officers spilling from their cruiser. Guns stayed holstered as they assessed the scene. One officer approached Liam, brow raised. "Is this your dog?" Liam swallowed hard. "Yes, sir." He stopped the guy, but he didn't bite. He just knocked him down. The officer turned to the witness. The shopkeeper nodded emphatically. "It's true, I saw the whole thing. The dog didn't attack. He just stopped him cold." The officer glanced at the thief, now cuffed and cursing under his breath. Then he looked at Bruno, who sat calmly at Liam's side, leash once more secure. The officer's expression softened. "Seems like we've got a hero here." Relief crashed over Liam, so fiercely his knees nearly buckled. "Thank you," he rasped. The officer knelt to Bruno's level, maintaining a respectful distance. "Good boy," he said quietly. "You did your city proud tonight." The next day, Liam's phone buzzed incessantly. News of the incident had spread fast, thanks in no small part to bystander videos uploaded within hours. Local news outlets ran headlines like, Misjudged sheltered dog foils street robbery. Photos of Bruno, muzzle free now, eyes steady, accompany the articles. Comments poured in, celebrating his bravery and restraint. Mike from the shelter called, voice warm with pride. You've done something incredible, Liam. Bruno's not just a survivor anymore. He's an example. Liam looked down at Bruno, curled beside him on the couch. He always was, he whispered. The world just needed to see it. In the weeks that followed the park incident, life shifted in ways Liam could not have imagined. The video of Bruno's intervention continued to ripple outward, spawning articles, social media praise, and even a short segment on the local evening news. Liam fielded calls and messages from people moved by Bruno's story, trainers, adopters, families who'd once given up hope on difficult dogs. Through it all, Bruno remained unchanged in the ways that mattered most: quiet, deliberate, grounded. Fame was a concept far removed from his world. What Liam cherished more were the subtler changes unfolding within their small apartment. Bruno no longer flinched at raised voices from passing neighbors. He tolerated the doorbell without bolting for the bathroom. He slept more soundly now, often near Liam's bed, body fully relaxed, the tension that had once lived in every muscle slowly unwinding. Trust had become a tangible presence between them, not a fragile thread, but a woven bond. And then, one crisp morning, Liam woke to find something that took his breath away. The sun had just begun to filter through the blinds when he stirred, rubbing sleep from his eyes. As he swung his legs over the edge of the bed, his foot bumped something soft. Blinking, he looked down and stared. One of his worn running shoes sat neatly against the bed frame, laces tangled slightly, a faint trail of fur along its side. Slowly, as if moving through water, Liam glanced toward the doorway. There sat Bruno, watching him quietly, tail thumping once against the floor. The implication was unmistakable. Bruno had retrieved the shoe and placed it there, not for play, not out of anxiety, but as a gesture, a gift, a bridge. Liam swallowed hard, voice thick. "Thank you, buddy," he whispered. Bruno's ears flicked forward. He rose, patted over, and leaned gently against Liam's leg. The simplicity of the act carried a weight no headline ever could. This wasn't a dog performing a trick. This was Bruno choosing connection, offering care in his own way. Liam knelt, arms sliding around the broad shoulders, and for the first time, Bruno pressed back fully into the embrace. No hesitation, no flinch, just trust. That afternoon, buoyed by the deepening bond between them, Liam decided it was time to confront one last relic of Bruno's past. Tucked behind the apartment complex, beneath a tarp, sat the battered crate that had once been Bruno's entire world. Liam had kept it not out of necessity, but as a symbol, a reminder of where they'd started, of how far they'd come. But he knew now it was time to offer Bruno the choice to close that chapter fully. He led Bruno into the small courtyard, the autumn light slanting through the trees. With slow movements, Liam pulled back the tarp and opened the crate door wide, stepping back to give Bruno space. For a long moment, Bruno stood still, gaze locked on the dark interior. Liam held his breath, unsure what would happen next. Then, with careful steps, Bruno approached. He sniffed the edges, ears tilted back slightly. After a pause, he stepped inside, circled once, and lay down. Liam felt his chest tighten, not with sorrow, but with understanding. This was not regression. It was acknowledgement. Bruno remained there for several minutes, eyes half closed, body loose. And then, without prompting, he rose, shook himself once, and padded out. He trotted past Liam without a glance, through the open sliding door, into the living room. Liam followed, heart hammering. Bruno paused by the sofa, glanced back once as if inviting him to bear witness, then leapt lightly onto the cushions and settled beside the worn throw pillow where Liam often sat. He lay down with a soft sigh, resting his head on the armrest. Liam stood frozen, warmth flooding through him. This wasn't mere convenience. It wasn't proximity out of necessity. It was choice. Bruno had left the shadows of the crate behind and claimed this space, beside Liam, as home. Slowly, Liam crossed the room and sat down. Bruno shifted closer, pressing his side against Liam's leg with quiet certainty. Liam rested a trembling hand atop the broad head, voice low. "Welcome home," he whispered. Bruno closed his eyes, tail giving a slow, contented wag. In that moment, the weight of every scar, every fear, every hard-won step fell away. What remained was a bond no file could capture, no past could diminish. Man and dog, battered but unbroken, choosing each other fully at last. If this story touched you in any way, consider giving it a like and subscribing to the channel. It helps us bring more stories like this to life. I'm curious, which part of Bruno's journey resonated with you the most? And where are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts.